Hello, my name is Tia Benjamin, and I will be doing my read aloud and book talk on There's No Place Like Space by Tish Rabe. And before I begin reading the story, I will ask the students to think independently at their tables and try and name all the names of the planets in the solar system. And then after we discuss it, we'll get into reading the story. There's no place like space. I'm the cat in the hat, and we're off to have fun, and we'll visit the planets, the stars, and the sun. There is no place like space. I will prove it to you. Your mother will not mind at all if I do. I don't know, cat in the hat. I think Mom will mind if you do. Jump in, here we go. We will fly up so high we can dance on the moon and play games in the sky. We will swing past the stars, and in case you have missed them, you'll soon see the planets in our solar system. There are 8 of these planets that circle the sun, and soon you'll be able to name every one. Mercury is close to the sun's burning light. It is hot in the daytime, but freezing at night. On Venus, the weather is always the same, hot, dry, and windy with no chance of rain. Today's weather on Venus, really, really hot, nearly 900 degrees Fahrenheit, windy and dry. So here's an opportunity for myself to ask the students to compare the temperature on Earth and Venus and ask them if they think that they could live on Venus with 900 degrees Fahrenheit. You have been living on it each day since your birth. It is third from the sun. It is our planet, Earth. It spins all the time, round and round like a top. It turns once every day and it never will stop. This question had thing 1 and thing 2 in a tizzy. If the Earth's always spinning, why don't we feel dizzy? Again, this is another opportunity to stop, ask the students what they think, and later we can go on into a discussion about this question. We don't feel the Earth as it spins on its way, because we're spinning right now with it right now every day. Next, here is Mars. It's the color of rust. Achoo! We spin here because it is covered with dust. Travel to Jupiter and you will find it is bigger than all other planets combined. Saturn has rings, it's so light, who would think? It could float in an ocean and not even sink. Another great opportunity to stop, ask the students to think critically and actually see if they think that a planet can float in an ocean, or maybe if this is just fiction. A planet can have satellites that surround it. Uranus has lots of objects around it. There are colors in space. I will show some to you. Neptune, planet 8, is a beautiful blue. We have seen all the planets. Now here's a trick to remember their names and say them quick. So here I will have the students to repeat after me, and this is going to be something that is going to allow the students to remember the names of the planets. And also it could be a good test that you can have the students take to see if they actually know. So, Mallory, Valerie, Emily, Nichols just saved up 999 nickels. The first letter of each of these words is the same as the first letter in each of the planets you name. Now here's a game you can play in the skies. Connect all the stars you can see with your eyes. A star in the sky may look small like a dot, but it's really a big glowing ball and it's hot. And here's one star by far that's our favorite one. We can't live without it, the star called the sun. From the Earth it looks big. There is one reason why. It's the closest to Earth of the stars in the sky. But be careful and never look right at the sun. Your eyes would get hurt and that would not be fun. We look at the time. We must go very soon. But first we must take a quick look at the moon. The moon does not shine in the sky in the night, but like a big mirror reflects the sun's light. Astronauts flew to the moon to explore a place no one had ever been to before. They walked on the moon and then drove all over in a special moon car called a lunar rover. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to ask the students what type of car vehicle that they would take to the moon and what they would name it. and what would they do if they were on the moon. So it gives me a chance to place the students in the story and also into space. The universe is a mysterious place. We are only just learning what happens in space. So I brought you a present to look in the sky. Just put this telescope up to your eye. Oh dear, I must go fly back to the stars and take things 1 and 2 out to dinner on Mars. But there's lots to discover, and it might be you who looks up in the sky and finds something that's new. This is the end of my story, and now I will begin my rationale on the story. I chose this story because I can connect the story to a lesson on space, so I can make interdisciplinary connections on a space lesson. Also, the illustrations in the story allow the students to go in the adventure with the cat in the hat, and also allows them to kind of imagine what it would be like if they went into space. So the illustrations are very important to the story. Also, I think that if the story was not taking place in space, I don't think that the students will actually be engaged into it. They won't actually feel themselves traveling into space with the cat in the hat. And I don't think it would open up their imaginations as well to see the different planets in the solar system. We also had the students think independently. I asked them before we began reading to name the 8 planets in the solar system, and then we began reading. Also, we did thinking critically and critiquing text. I asked the students, for example, about comparing the weather in our planet to Venus, and if they think that we could live in Venus. And hopefully, majority of the students would say no. At first sight, we did talking back. In the beginning of the story, we told the cat in the hat that he should not take mom's kids because she would mind. The next, we did critiquing and controlling. I asked the students about the lunar rover, and I asked the students what type of vehicle they would take to space, what would they name it, and also I asked them what would they do in space if they could travel with the cat in the hat. And as well, we did talking over. We used that acronym, and we got the students engaged into being a part of the story. You can also, with the interdisciplinary connections, you can connect this story to a book called All About Space, the Solar System, the Universe, and Space Travel. That is a good story to connect because everything in that non-fictional story is mentioned in this fictional story, but in more detail. As in the universe, that story talks about the sun, the stars, the constellations. The Cat in the Hat mentions the constellations and some of the constellations that you'll see. We also talk about the sun in this story. The whole book is about the solar system. We talked about the different planets and their characteristics. The non-fictional story that you can connect this with is going to go in more detail about the Earth and Venus and the stars, as well as space travel. This story, like I mentioned, talked about going to the moon. The non-fictional story is going to give you more non-fictional information, like about rockets and where they go and satellites traveling into space. An interesting lead that I saw in this story was the question about the Earth spinning and why we don't feel dizzy. I think this would be a good opportunity for the students to analyze what they might know and give me an answer and figure out what they possibly believe. And also, this is going to go into a great mini physics lesson, and we can try and figure out what makes us dizzy and what doesn't make us dizzy. and maybe compare it to when we go to a theme park, and we go in the teacups, or we go on a ride that makes us dizzy. So it leads into a great discussion that we can do in a classroom. Well, there's only 3 characters in the story, and 2 of them never talk. But I think that they're 2 of the most important characters in the story. In the beginning, you see a little girl and a little boy, and it seems like they're living pretty normal. And then the Cat in the Hat comes along, and he just takes them on this adventure into space, and they're in there just interacting and seeing the planets. So they pretty much went from pretty normal to being adventurous. And at the end of the story, you can kind of see that, based on the illustrations, that the little girl and the little boy kind of become little astronauts themselves. And I think that this is very important because I believe that the students saying the little girl and the little boy that were so normal and they go on this adventure, it will allow the students to possibly want to go out and see new things or discover new things, which is very important for students to always be seeking knowledge and trying to find out information. So the students can actually connect with the little girl and the little boy in the story, The Cat in the Hat. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.